Okay, good evening, everybody. Before I begin, for those of you joining us on YouTube, you can't see us. Our camera is not working, but we understand that you can hear us. I know our communications team has put something out onto socials, just to let folks know about the camera glitch, and we will be looking into that tomorrow. Hopefully, it's back up and running for the Wednesday meeting. So as we begin, I'll ask all people present to silence cell phones and other electronic devices, and I'm going to do the same. Reminding council that our procedure bylaw prescribes the use of technology during council meetings. It is 6:31 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order with a territorial land acknowledgement. Brighton Council's work takes place on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Mississauga, Anishinaabeg, now of Alderville. We are thankful to be able to work and live on this land. We offer a land acknowledgement as a way to recognize, respect, and honor this territory, the treaties, the original occupants, their ancestors, and the historic connection they still have with these lands and waters. We are grateful for the opportunity that these lands and waters present to the people of Brighton and grateful to work in partnership with the Indigenous community on their stewardship and sustainability. And I have a motion moved by Councilor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council approve the July 21st, 2025 Council agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. I will note that Councilor Wright did send regrets for this evening's meeting. Members of council have any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. Are there any announcements this evening? Councilor McCausland.
I know it was a little while ago, but I just wanted to say that Canada Day was a great day. There was lots of kiddos running around, lots of people out. So it was nice to see the community really come out, even though it fell on Tuesday.
Thank you for that. It was a wonderful day, and it was wonderful seeing all of the young families out and about. And it made I think everyone realize that this is not just a seniors community. We are in fact a community filled with all sorts of demographics. And on that Canada Day, there were a lot of little ones. So it was great to see. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, sorry, I missed a lot of good information. I was away. I went to Port Dover for a full month, or for a week, actually. It was fantastic and it's a great location and I went there, so thank you very much. And I missed it this time.
It's next year.
We can't be everywhere all the time. Thank you. Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out to our public works staff. I know they are juggling, I think, 7 different projects right now. And it seems like everywhere I go around Brighton, I see our staff out working and doing a great job. I want to thank residents for their patience with traffic delays and things like that. I know that we have extra traffic through town in camping season and whatnot, but I think so far everything is working very well. So thank you to our team.
Thank you for that. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. I think Councillor Wheeldon forgot that he represented yourself and the rest of council at the Presqu'île Property Owners AGM. Did a good job, Jeff. You and I were both there. So I'll leave that compliment there. Also, watch the socials as well for the Barns to Beaches event that's going to be happening in Brighton August the 8th, because I don't believe we will be meeting again as far as announcement being made. So I know our communication staff's community events are working with this group, and it should be a fun evening. August 8th, I believe, right, Ben? Thank you.
And can we go into a little bit about what that is?
I would suggest that you ask Ben about that. He has the details. I don't.
I didn't set you up for this, Mr. Hagerman, so if you would like to, I would appreciate the info.
Sure. How formal to the mayor, to the mayor to the rest of the council. Yeah, we have August the 8th, as Councillor Rowley alluded to. Barns to Beaches is the title of the initiative. It's actually put on by the Canadian Musicians Cooperative, and they are a kind of sub outlet from FedDev, which is a economic development department within the federal government. So it's all subsidized through the federal economic development and tourism initiatives. We paid a fee to hold the event. We've been able to gather some sponsorship dollars to offset some costs. August 8th, it's going to be all up and coming musicians from across Canada under 31 years old. We've even found a Northumberland local musician to open up the evening. That's supposed to be pretty spectacular as well. You could come make your way down about anytime after 5 o'clock and bring your chair, no different than a Wednesday evening. The show will start rolling at 6 o'clock. We're going to have local food vendors, same ones as our Wednesday evening lineup. And it should be a really fun night. Hope for good weather. And it's quite exciting.
And that's in Memorial Park, correct?
Correct, sorry.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor Butwell.
Just wanted to thank people who came out to the Bridge Hospice yard sale. That it was the 9th year this year. Some wonderful volunteers have been prepping for for 5 full days, 2 days of sale. Turnout was a little bit low. There was a really large neighborhood sale going on at the same time, but those that came out got some fantastic bargains, and just wanted to remind people that our local hospice is just up in Warkworth. It's a 3-bedroom facility, and I am not joking when I say we should all be so lucky to pass there.
Indeed true. I had someone very close to me lucky enough to pass there. So they were treated very well in their last moment. So thank you for that. Any other announcements this evening? I do have a few. For those who aren't on the social channels, automated speed enforcement is up and running in Brighton, Elizabeth Street. So everybody 40 kilometers an hour or cha-ching. And that's been up and running for a week now, I believe. CAO, that's true, right? July 14th it started, yeah. Our friends in Alderville had an election late last week. So Chief Tainer Simpson has been reelected as chief. So we congratulate Chief Simpson and all his council-elect. I will be sending a formal congratulatory message from the office in the next day or so, and the warden's office will send one as well. Part of this election year is that their term has been increased from 2 to 3 years, which is good news. 1 more year would probably be helpful for them, but and they've added 1 member of council to their slate of representatives as well. Also, not to be too personal here, but my wife and I had opportunity to vacation in France for 2 weeks, and as part of the last 2 weeks, and as part of that, we took a few days to journey up to Annecy, the community that we twinned with last year. You will recall that part of the reason for the twinning was that Clark Lawson from Brighton perished in Annecy on D-Day. The mayor and Mrs. Delahaye were incredibly kind to Tammy and I, but the entire community was effusive about our relationship, Brighton's relationship with them. They have, as you probably remember, named a road after Clark, Rue Clark Lawson, and it connects at the intersection where he perished. That was startling to me when the mayor told me that, describing that not a block away is the church, St. Peter's Church in Annecy, where the Nazi soldiers had taken over the church and were headquartered there. And that's where the Queen's Own Rifles engaged the Nazis. And Clark was the only soldier to pass away that day in Annecy. The Queen's Own Rifles then liberated the little town, and that's as far as they got on June 6th. The Queen's Own Rifles was the only regiment to get to their destination on June 6th. Everyone else was stopped at the beaches or just inside the beaches, but the Queens got to Annecy, which was their their target for that day. Unfortunately, Clark didn't make it. As part of our tour, the mayor of Annecy and I placed a wreath at Rue Clark Lawson in honor of Clark, and we signed a twinning charter, which will be in Caroline's hands tomorrow so that she can get it framed. And then because it was their Fête Nationale, what we say Bastille Day, they don't say Bastille Day in France. I didn't realize that. The Fête Nationale, they had a barbecue, which about a third of the community turned out for, which is great. There's 900 people in Annecy, so it's easier to rally those troops, I guess. ANISY. And then they had a little dance. So as the French do, it went on into the wee hours of the night. And then the next day, the mayor and Mrs. Delahaye toured Tammy and I up to Juno Beach, where we had opportunity to talk to the proprietor of Canada House, the first house liberated off of Juno Beach by the Queen's Own Rifles, which has been in the same family for the last 81 years. And they have made it their mission to ensure that Canadians continue to be welcomed at this house. They then took us to the British monument because it was the newest monument that had been created, and it does display all the beaches. We then went to the Canadian Cemetery, where I was able to place a flag that I picked up on our Canada Day at Clark's grave. And then we went to the Juno Beach Center, which was, well, I'll just say it this way. When I came out, they said, if you have any suggestions, I said, yes, you need tissue in the in the displays. It was an incredibly emotional experience. And I knew it would be. I didn't know how emotional it would be. So I'm grateful for our new friends in Annecy for the experience that we had in France for those 3 days. It was incredible. And I have lots of photos, and I intend to put a presentation together for council and whomever else in the committee wants to see it. So community wants to see it. So we'll get that done for everybody too. So I didn't have time. We got back last night. So thank you. Are there any other announcements? We move into the adoption of the minutes with a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, and I will need a seconder. The council adopt the June 23rd, 2025 council meeting minutes as presented. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council adopt the June 24th, 2025 special council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening. We have no delegations or presentations listed on the agenda. That brings us to citizens' comments. Madam Clerk, are you aware of any citizens' comments this evening? So we head right into staff reports. The first report is the Community Improvement Plan 2025 intake. Manager Hagerman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council accept and approve the 2 community improvement applications as submitted by by Brighton Sports and Wellness and Filex Drugs Inc. with an estimated 2025 operating budget funding allocation of approximately $20,000 as recommended by the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. As I've said many times, this is wonderful to finally see this community improvement plan come to fruition, and the fact that it's being taken advantage of. Kudos to our staff, and I just think it's awesome. We'll see improvements downtown for sure.
Indeed, we will. And kudos to the applicants who are also investing fairly heavily in their own buildings as well and taking advantage of opportunities to make Brighton a better place. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Butwell.
Through you to Manager Hagerman, have you had any other communication? Are there any other applications in the pipeline for the next cutoff?
Mr. Hagerman?
Sorry, through the mayor to Councillor Butwell, and the rest of council, the plan, is that, this intake for 2025 is concluded. There's gonna be another intake in January of 2026. But yes, to kind of answer your question a little bit fuller, we did have, the first step in considering an application is to have a pre-consultation meeting. So we actually had 5 pre-consultation meetings, and these were the only 2 applications that actually submitted. So there's 3 other folks downtown, 3 other businesses downtown that are very interested in putting forth an application. And I think at the end of the day, we launched this in May. So maybe if you didn't have a project in mind at the time, or you didn't have the funding and capital funding in mind at the time as a property owner or a business owner at the time, then this probably came pretty quick. But for the folks that were planning to do something anyway, which is kind of what's happening here, this was perfect timing for them. But now that it's out, we're gonna see some improvements on some buildings. I would assume that the January intake will be a little more fulsome.
Thank you both. Anything else? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to a report on a purchase of a new fire truck. Chief Thompson, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not, your worship.
Thank you. A motion moved by Council Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council approve the new 2025 GMC Sierra K 1500 4x4 fire truck purchase for a total of $89,690.20 from Dependable Emergency Vehicles. Is there any discussion? I will just ask for the sake of the public, because we do have 2 reports with regard to the purchase of trucks for the fire department. Is this one part of the budget? Was this contemplated during part of the budget?
Yeah, that's correct. This is part of our capital.
Thank you,
budget
sir.
for-
Appreciate that. Anything further from members of council? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next report is a purchase of a 2007 aerial platform truck. Chief Thompson, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not this time, your worship.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council approved the allocation of $100,000, $77,000 from online burn permit revenue, the funds received through the sale of the GMC mini pumper, approximately $25,000, and any balance from the fire reserve to allow the fire chief to negotiate the purchase of a pre-owned aerial platform truck. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
I just wanted to point out that if anybody's ever wondering if they can get away with just not getting a permit for their campfire, that they should just remember that they're funding our next fire truck.
And they should also remember there's a pretty hefty fine if they get caught otherwise too. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. To the fire chief, this truck is coming from a long ways away. Is the expense included as well as like travel expense? I'm sure you're not going to drive there and drive it back, are you? It'll have to be shipped here. Yeah, so that's all included in this $100,000?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Raleigh, that's correct. It's delivered to Brighton, included in that one price.
Thank you both. Thank you both for that. Obviously, this one is not as part of the budget. Thus the explanation in the motion, but where the money's coming from, Chief?
That's correct, your worship.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And just because it was unanimous, Chief, doesn't mean next meeting you get to come back for another fire truck. Next report is with regard to the wastewater treatment plant RFP award and JL Richards agreement. CAO, I'm not going to ask. We're just going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, the information is in the report. I know there has been some discussion today and council has received some calls, emails. Matt from JL Richards is here, and I think it would be a good opportunity for him to perhaps go over the evaluation, as they are the ones who conducted the evaluation on the RFPs. We certainly as staff have had the opportunity to meet and review that work. We're obviously comfortable with the recommendation in front of you, but I think it would be a good opportunity for Matt to be able to provide council with an overview on how that conclusion came to be.
Thank you. Through you, so the evaluation that was put through as part of the tender package was discussed with staff at the onset to ensure that the project secured a contractor that had both the qualifications and skill sets to complete this work. It's a very large project and has a lot of complicated aspects to it. So through those discussions, we developed a scoring criteria that had two main criterias. The first one being the bid price, which represented 80% of the points that were awarded. And then the second component was the technical piece of that evaluation. And within the tender documents, we had laid out three separate categories within the technical criteria. The first being the general contractor's corporate experience and projects that they've previously completed. The second being the general contractor's personnel that were going to be working on the project. And then the third criteria was any mechanical and electrical subcontractors and their projects and personnel that were going to be working on the project. The mechanical electrical is a large portion of the technical piece that's required for a project like this. And so we felt it was important for all three of those criteria to be evaluated to ensure consistency and quality of the project. We received 6 bids for this, and these were evaluated based on the packages that were submitted and the information that was provided. It closed on July 3rd, which the prices were opened. We did extend the tender package twice based on feedback we were getting from contractors on the availability of different subcontractors and quotes to get the different parts of the work completed.
Thank you, Mr. Markham. Before I read the motion, I'll ask members of council if they have any questions, clarification for Mr. Markham. Go ahead, Councillor Bellwell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a list of questions I'd like to ask about this item.
Any objections from council to go through the list? You may cover some of our questions, so go right ahead.
I might. Okay, so bear with me. It's several pages long. Okay, but I actually have one of my own questions first. I don't have listed here. So we have 80% based on the bid price, 20% on the technical piece with the 3 sub categories. Are those 3 criteria weighted equally?
Through you, no. So each one was had their own scoring criteria. General contractor corporate experience was worth 6 marks. The general contractor project team was worth 8 marks. And the electrical and mechanical subcontractors was worth 6 marks.
Okay. So when we talk about, and bear with me because these questions were partially supplied to me, and I think they're worth asking, especially because we're talking about a significant amount of money. So I'm just going to start off with number 1. It's a long question. Can you provide an explanation of the rationale behind the scoring system, including its origin, frequency of use, and justification for its application in this project? Specifically, clarification on why this system, reportedly used only twice before, was selected again, and whether its repeated use has disproportionately favored North American Construction 1993 Limited as the recommended proponent. What measures are in place to ensure that such evaluation frameworks are fair, transparent, and do not inadvertently bias outcomes towards specific contractors?
Okay, I will try and answer that question. This scoring criteria or format we have seen it in other municipalities, and it has been used. It has represented other projects that North America has successfully won. I can't speak to those, but on this one, we felt it was a reasonable expectation to provide both the qualifications of the contractors as well as the personnel working on it. We asked for standard documents. So CCDC is a standard construction documents that are used. We asked for standard forms to be provided, as well as the CVs of the personnel that would be working on the project.
Okay, so how many times have you used this framework?
Like me.
Sorry, JL Richards.
JL Richards. We've used this criteria 4 times, I think. I'm going by memory here. I'd have to go back and search, but I think it's around 4 or 5 times we've used this criteria.
I have a note here that is found to have been used 2 other times in North Grenville wastewater treatment plant and the Golden Pheasant wastewater treatment plant. And in both cases, NAC was not the low bidder on those either.
That is correct.
Okay. Question 2. Question 2, under the current scoring system, Dalcon would have needed to submit a bid approximately $2.69 million lower than their actual bid just to tie the NAC overall score. This raises concerns about whether the weighting of the financial component is appropriately balanced. Does the current scoring formula place too little emphasis on cost, potentially disadvantaging lower bidders?
This scoring criteria was developed in discussions with staff, like I had mentioned, to try and provide some quality-based selection to the project. Yeah.
Okay, so was it staff that pushed this system forward, or was it JLR?
It was in consultation in discussions with staff about the appropriateness of what we wanted to provide out of this recommendation.
Okay. Given the structure of the court scoring system, the outcome of this RFP, were there, so this is a statement, starting off a statement. There were widespread rumors within the industry itself prior to the bid nomination that NAC would be awarded the contract. How is it possible that such a specific outcome was anticipated before the evaluation process was complete? What safeguards are in place to ensure the integrity and impartiality of the procurement process? And how does the municipality respond to concerns, or are we supposed to respond to concerns that the process may have appeared predetermined?
We're happy to give debriefs to any of the other contractors who submitted them. We have provided the scoring that was completed for each of the contractors, both on the price and on the technical submissions. We're happy to provide debriefs to any of the other contractors that wish to see more detailed scoring. This was reviewed with staff in detail about why the scoring was scored the way it was. To provide transparency to that process.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, North America, NAC had a score out of 6. They received 6 out of 6. They were self-performing both the mechanical and electrical components. Dalcon, the second place, and the only other one that seemed to meet the criteria for this process, self-performed on mechanical and subbed out the to IECBL. Have you heard of IECBL, and have you worked with them?
I do know IE. I have worked with them on many occasions.
Are you currently working with them now on anything?
I am not.
You're not. Are they a capable electrical subcontractor?
Yes.
Okay, so how come they were pointed so much lower? Because the difference is 2.8, nearly 50% of the potential 6 points.
So we can only review the documents that are submitted through this bidding process. If documents aren't submitted to be able to score those, we are not using our knowledge of this company. We have to base it on the documents that each of the contractors submit.
So was it not presented more as like providing an electrical resume? And if you're not actually performing those tasks yourself, how are you supposed to submit?
Well, then they would provide the projects and resumes from that contractor.
That JLR is very familiar with. As
We are, but we are quite cognizant of the tendering process and how this works. And the fact that to be fair to all bidders, we have to evaluate the packages as they're submitted.
okay. May I continue? On the RFP bid form, the total points section is marked as not applicable. However, it appears that the award decision is being made based on points. The bid form clearly states that if a proponent scores above 14 out of 20 on the technical evaluation, they meet the minimum threshold. Why are they not awarded based on price after this point?
That was the minimum threshold that was needed
Mhm.
in order to ensure that those would be reviewed both price and technical.
Mhm. So if they both meet the minimum criteria, why is the balance not awarded based on price?
Well, based on the scoring that was put into the RFP, technical was worth 20 points and price was worth. So we wanted to set a minimum threshold that would ensure that the quality and skills of that contractor were there, but also allow them to demonstrate additional skills and above and beyond that minimum.
Okay, further to that, the 14, was that arbitrarily chosen?
No, that is
How was that chosen?
sort of an industry standard 70% aspect that we typically see in most technical qualification based selection.
Okay, I'm just gonna skip over 5 for a moment because I just think I'm gonna skip 5 for a moment. What specific criteria led to Dalcon's lower technical score, 15.6 versus NEC's 19.9? This subjective review scored Canada's largest contractor well behind NAC. Corporately, PCL does 18 billion in annual volume in all areas of construction, including water and wastewater. That it seems interesting that they were not scored near NAC, who do only 1.4 billion. So what specific criteria led to their lower technical score?
I can get into the details. We don't typically review that in open form because that's their own, like, just a lot of contractors don't want to kind of review their individual packages. I can say that
I think they might be interested in hearing your thoughts.
I can say that we reviewed the package and the way it was submitted, and there were pieces that were missing from that evaluation
Mhm.
that we could not evaluate because there was not included in the package.
And was that wholly the electrical piece?
That was a large component of it, yes.
What would be a secondary and or tertiary component?
The other one where there were, for instance, I can give you an example where one of the representative projects that were provided was more than 10 years old.
Mhm.
One of the criteria that was set out in the tender documents was that all of the projects that were submitted to demonstrate their experience had to be within 10 years.
Okay, are those judged based on commencement or completion or substantial completion? Full completion?
Yes, it was the dates that the contractor filled out in the standardized CCDC form as the date of completion.
Okay. Was the use of local subcontractors considered in the scoring criteria for the RFP? Local trades contribute meaningfully to job creation, faster response times, reduced environmental impact, and stronger community engagement. Dalcon included over 10% of local subcontractor participation in their proposal. If this factor is not weighted, why was such a significant community benefit excluded from the evaluation?
It was not looked at from that perspective.
So it was not considered at all.
No.
Is that standard that community benefit, extended community benefit is excluded through these processes, or is it not?
Not always. It depends on the scoring criteria that's set up at the onset of the project.
Was it brought up by either staff or anybody on your team?
I don't think we discussed that, no.
Okay. Is there any feedback or consultation with industry experts regarding the fairness of the scoring system?
Not specifically that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, so I do have a chart here. It's not available for everybody, so I don't think that I can essentially talk about it. The bidders all voluntarily disclosed this information, so I do have the full list of the mechanical and electrical component, scoring component, and seeing that 5 of the 6 bidders all were using IECBL as their electrical, and were 3 out of the 5 remaining were self-performing under the mechanical, and 2 were using Thousand Island. Could you perhaps comment on why the scores are so different for everybody under that total potential 6? And I'm happy to show you this chart if you'd like.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Not every contractor submits the package in the format that we had asked it for. So depending on the completeness of their package that was submitted would vary their scores accordingly.
So under those mechanical and electrical potential 6 marks, are those split 3 and 3 equally?
That's correct.
They are. If you could give me, perhaps someone else could ask a question first. I just want to get my brain around one thing, one of the answers here.
Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to say that I'm very fine with 20% on technical, because quality matters and errors cost extra. So I'm not at all surprised by it being weighted that high. But I am curious about extra costs. There's 25% contingency built into these prices, right? Is that?
I don't think there's 25, no.
No?
Contingency built into that. We are carrying a contingency within that budget
Yeah.
of
Okay.
$3.5 million.
Yeah.
To allow for anything that comes up during the contract, unknowns, those types of things.
Okay. When you review these, the past performance of the bidders, is there any review of how often they go over budget?
No, it
Okay.
was to ensure that they had the experience to complete these projects. It's sometimes difficult to evaluate all of those, individual criteria of why a particular project went over budget. There's a lot of different reasons that can happen. And so we didn't evaluate that in this scoring criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. This might be a question that maybe the CAO could answer as well. So the scoring format was discussed and set up with staff, correct? Did staff score?
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Rowley, no, we did not. No one on staff has the expertise to go through these types of documents. So we left that with the consultants, their team. And then we regrouped after and had them go through the individual components and explain to us, why the scorings came out the way that they did. And we were quite satisfied with that review.
Councillor Butwell.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to the scoring on mechanical and electrical. So the 2 lowest ranked bidders, and again, the bidders have voluntarily disclosed the information. They all have a shared concern that something irregular is happening with this process. 2 of them have identical mechanical and electrical subs, but yet they scored differently.
So again, it depends on the documents that they submitted through this tendering process. We can only evaluate the documents that they provided to us. So if they did not submit the documents in the appropriate way or the appropriate documents, then we did not review or score them equally.
I'm just going to follow that up and say there seems to be something, looking at these numbers and seeing the scores, out of a total 6, NAC got perfect score. The next place was 3.2, then 2.8, 2.1, 1.0, and 0.8. So essentially everyone scored at approximately at or significantly under 50%.
Correct.
So that seems statistically odd.
Like I said, all I can say is that we evaluated the documents that were provided. There were some contractors that did not submit on the electrical side.
Out of the 6, all of them have stated that they are using IECBL. So did they not submit anything on the electrical? They just said this is who we're using?
Correct.
And no additional, okay. And I won't ask the details because that's information that I understand you're not at liberty to share.
Correct.
Was a bidder's litigation history or involvement in legal disputes included as a criteria in the technical evaluation for the proposal as it pertains to litigation with within the technical sphere of previous projects?
No.
With both bidders having met the minimum threshold for technical compliance, the lowest bid offers an immediate savings of over $600,000, which over the term of the borrowing period amounts to between $1.1 and $1.2 million additional that would be put on the taxpayer in Brighton. How does it make fiscal?
Sorry, hang on. Just FYI, it's the ratepayer. Not all the taxpayers will be covering the cost of this.
True, pardon me.
Just wanted to
Those who are
clarify
using
that.
the good clarification. So between 1.1 and $1.2 million more expensive to go with the NAC versus the second place. That will be a hit on the ratepayers. Those are the users of the wastewater sewage system. How does it make fiscal sense to overlook such a substantial cost difference in favor of a higher bid?
I can only evaluate based on the tender, based on the scoring system that was developed prior to issuing these documents. And so this tender was issued and we've followed that evaluation criteria to provide a recommendation on that process.
So were the carrying costs of this extra $600,000 taken into consideration? Was it discussed at all that it was essentially going to double?
No, we
difference?
did not review that.
Okay. And I'll take just a quick moment to just regroup myself here.
Just remind council that this is a recommendation to council. If council wishes to make a different choice, that is up to us. We should probably have that conversation, make sure we're not going down a road that could lead us into difficulties.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's a council decision that we're making here.
Then I would like to make a motion to refer this item to a future meeting.
I don't, we can.
We cannot,
Yes.
we don't discuss the motion to refer.
Is there a seconder? You're referring it or deferring it?
We've had this conversation before. I always thought it was defer.
A deferral is simply punting it away to another meeting. A referral would be sending it
Oh.
back to staff for consideration. And we'd want to give them something to consider.
Then I'd actually like to defer it to a future meeting and further ask staff to get some very clear, grounded in fact information on the answers to these questions.
And putting words in your mouth. Direct staff to evaluate questions concerning the engineering firm's recommendation and further defer the matter to a future meeting.
I like putting a date on.
I would like staff, if we're going to do this, I would like staff to make sure that they're comfortable with whatever reports coming forward. And then let me know that they're ready and I will call a special meeting through the clerk's office.
Perfect.
That's what I thought we would do.
Okay, special meeting would
Yeah.
be most appropriate.
That way we're not pushing it too far away, knowing that we're a bit under the gun by the ministry here to get this project going. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Well, I appreciate there's some concerns that weren't successful in this process. We have a consultant in place to prepare the document sent out. It is available for those to ask questions. Thank you. Thank you.
So,
And the process is set up so it is fair and transparent. The submissions were provided, they were evaluated based on the criteria that all the proponents had in advance. The information that wasn't submitted within the submissions that we had, and the reasons, and I'm trying to be high level here, that we did not score them as high is because there was uncertainty about what that looked like. So when we talk about the $600,000, there was certainty with the submission that had been selected based on the information that was provided. We extended the deadline twice. We extended the deadline specifically because consultants had, or contractors had spoke to the fact that they were having challenges getting the electrical information. So the opportunities were provided. There was an ask to extend a third time, and in discussion, we opted not to do that because we are on a very tight timeline with the province. We have another exceedance in the last month, and the province has been very tight to our timelines. So when we talked about the extension and how that would impact the expectation from the province, we opted not to extend a third time. So the information from our perspective was out there. The extensions were provided, and the submissions were evaluated based on what we received. So I would say I would not recommend deferring it and trying to push this to another meeting. It certainly is up to council, but I certainly have some concerns with our timelines if we do that.
Okay, and I'd like to respond to that. Simply because we don't discuss whether there's value or not in deferring, we vote on it as a council. I'd also like to say that there's been some procedural challenges that have occurred around this project in the past. And I am not willing to go forward simply because of a timeline that was perhaps not adhered to by everyone. I don't know the specifics. Again, you were much more involved in this process, but I'm not just going to keep punting the ball forward when it means the ratepayers of this community inherit these massive bills just for the sake of pushing this ball down the field. I'm sorry, I'm not willing to do that. Not when there are questions and not when there are facts that appear before me. And I've been contacted by 3 separate people today who have an immense amount of concern. And the fact that the other bidders are revealing their scores is also concerning to me.
Thank you for that. I also received several calls today. In each case, I informed the caller that I probably shouldn't be having the conversation unless I was to pick up the phone and have a conversation with the other bidders. I didn't want to taint the process. I wanted to hear what the consultant had to say with regard to the bid information and what council had to say and what questions council had to ask. So I do appreciate the questions that were asked this evening. I do have a motion before me if it's acceptable. Yes, go ahead. I understand that you think this is a motion to defer, but the first portion of it does direct staff. So I'm going to allow the questions. Go ahead.
Thank you. If we do decide to push this, and like you said, we have gotten some backlash, I guess, from the province, will we get costs awarded to us if we don't get it done before a certain date or anything like that?
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, we certainly have been fined in the past. So as we have these meetings with MECP and we move forward, I would say we're keeping them, content with our processes. I would say also, in addition to our timelines, we also have some significant funding that's come from the province, and we are on a tight timeline to ensure that there is completion of the project to receive those funds as well.
If we were to be fined again, do we know what the level of fine would be?
Gee, Mr. Mayor, I do not.
Mr. Morcom, do you have any idea? The first round of fines was in the tune of, do you remember, Councillor Rowley? It was in the tune of $300,000. But we pled down, and I think we only paid I think we paid somewhere around $200,000 somewhere. That's the number, 100 and some, 150. But my understanding also is the second round of fines would be double from the first round. So we would be looking at, well, more than that, probably closer to $1 million worth of fines if we were to be fined. So, $600,000 or $1 million is what we're talking about today. Go ahead, Councillor Boutwell.
And again, I feel like we are actually having the discussion about deferral when we're not supposed to be having the discussion about deferral. So I would like to also say, I have personally spoken with someone at the MECP, and as long as we are working towards the solution, their goal is not to fine us again. I think that the MECP would probably look at the questions that we have and think they are perfectly valid questions.
And I appreciate the questions we're asking, and I also want to get to the bottom of some of the answers. I would caution members of council about calling officers of the province. We've been down that road before as well and had our hands slapped. So just caution members of council around that one. Any further discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
Just to be clear, this is a motion to refer since we're directing staff, and so we can have this discussion.
Both a referral and a deferral are not supposed to be debated, but the first portion directs staff to evaluate, so I'm allowing the discussion.
Okay. Just a point of clarity, CAO, the process was extended twice, and so contractors had the opportunity to ask questions and complete application packages. Is that correct? Everyone should have known the same information.
That's correct. I can probably add to that a little bit. Someone did ask a question during the tender period about the format of the mechanical and electrical subcontractors information to be submitted. And we did clarify that in an addendum to indicate that they were to submit similar forms to the general contractor in terms of the CCDC, the standardized contracts, and the CVs or resumes that were to be provided.
Councillor Wheeldon.
To follow up on that, for those who did not submit, were they made aware of this error or lapse on their part? Or was it just assumed they would not?
Nobody has been notified. We've only provided the recommendation to council or to staff right now. In terms of the people that did not submit, we're happy to give debriefs at the discretion of the town.
So it's possible that somebody had overlooked something and submitted an incomplete application by mistake and didn't know.
That is a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to our consultant, the addendums that go out, they do go out to all of the parties that the list that you have of those that had attended that you expect the bids to come from.
That's correct. Through this tendering process, one of the mandatory requirements that we had was that they had to come to the job showing that we had on site so they could look around, understand what the site looks like, and not be surprised by anything that was on site. So only people that attended that were able to attend. We had that list, and the addendum was sent out through bids and tenders for all bidders to receive those addendums.
Councillor Butwell.
I think I skipped over a question. I'm going to go back to it if I might. So you as consulting engineer, Joe Richards, you're involved in both the design and the evaluation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And would it be common practice for there to be a declaration of a I mean, we call it pecuniary interest, a conflict of interest, to ensure impartiality? Would it be standard to it being involved in both of those components?
No.
Those functions? No? Okay.
Anything further from members of council? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we're kind of putting a little bit of a pressure on staff to kind of get back to us soon because
We're only putting pressure on staff if the motion is passed.
Right, correct, right. If the motion is passed, there will be pressure on staff to kind of come back sooner than later because what are our timelines exactly? I know the window gets smaller every time we move something for sure. And as you say, I would hate for this municipality to miss out on the significant monies that the province has gifted us in order to get this completed. So if we wait a week or two, is that going to have a big impact?
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you have the
Yeah, I'm trying to go by memory on the completion date for the HUSIF funding. I want to say, I don't want to say the incorrect date. I don't remember off the top of my head the date that's in that funding application. Pardon?
Next year?
No, it's the contract for this is 2 years long. So it's slightly beyond that, but not a lot beyond what we have for awarding this contract to hit substantial completion for an operational plant.
Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the, I don't even know who this is to anyone who's listening. This is a lot of money. And there is obviously a process involved. We want to be as aware and respectful of timelines as possible. But for this to come out on a Friday, ask us to get our brains all around this and make these big decisions, why can we not be afforded an extra week or two to get the right information for this? We're talking about nearly $60 million.
I had this information on Wednesday, so as a member of council. I know the public didn't, but the public's not making this decision right now.
Right. We don't get the information on Wednesday. Perhaps you do.
Well, Wednesday or was it Thursday?
Thursday after business
Okay,
hours, yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Councillor Wheeldon.
Question for the CAO, I think. We just reviewed and supported a procurement policy. I assume that this process aligned with our procurement policy and all relevant provincial legislation regarding the way procurement happens at a municipal level.
CEO.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Wheeldon, certainly it did, even with the change in our procurement policy, it still would have aligned, being the significant value that it is.
Thank you. Anything further, members of council? Anyone want me to read the motion again? It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Rowley. Council directs staff to evaluate questions concerning the engineering firm's recommendation and further defer the matter to a future meeting. I can put to a future special meeting if you'd prefer. Okay.
Just
So
future meeting.
It stands as is. Sure. Yeah. Anything further from members of council? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion's defeated. I do have a motion that reads, and I have a seconder, but not a mover. The council approved the award of the wastewater treatment plant RFP to North American Construction Limited in the amount of $50 million. Sorry, let me start again. $50,122,781, and the council directs staff to finalize a long-term borrowing strategy for the balance of the project in advance of the 2026 draft budget. And the council directs staff to execute the contract with J.L. Richards for the Brighton wastewater treatment system upgrades, contract administration, Schedule C, Class EA, and plant expansion design. Is there a mover? It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon. It's seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. McCausland, and I'll need a seconder that council receive the staff report number CLK 2025-112 as information. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wheeldon, is there any discussion? Those in favor? Are there any opposed? That motion's carried. The next is with regard to a mobile food bank. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council approve the municipal lot on Alice Street as a location for the Northumberland Fair Share to offer distribution of overstock inventory through a mobile food bank once a week in the municipality of Brighton. Councillor Rowley, as the mover, can we add that and that this information be referred to the homelessness task force? I'm saying we should approve this, yes, but also pass it on to the homelessness task force as they are compiling a database of potential opportunities for folks dealing with homelessness.
Certainly, I agree with that. That's fine. And I should say also, having been on the board of our local food bank here, I have shared that information with them, and they will be sharing it with our clients as well. Every little extra bit helps. So they are pleased to get that information once, if this is approved, and I will make sure that information will be posted on our board in our office.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, are you okay with that addition? You pretending to be the deputy mayor again? Deputy Mayor Anderson, you okay with that addition to the motion? Thank you.
Great.
So I've just added the words and further that this information be referred to the homelessness task force. Is there any discussion? Councillor Butwell.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. And I suppose I'm going to ask my my colleague across, Councillor Rowley. With this essentially being like expanded food bank hours, was the Brighton Food Bank approached about doing this first?
I should say I had a conversation with our CAO once this crossed her desk. And I have since talked to our food bank board, and no, it was not shared with us initially. I think this is just something over and above. It didn't come from Northumberland Food for All. I think it just comes from maybe the Coburg Fair Share Food Bank. So they might have extra, which, you know what, share and share alike. It'll be great. So this won't affect any hours of service that we offer. This will be just a bonus for those who might need that extra loaf of bread or some extra fresh vegetables.
On an additional day to what's offered already in Brighton.
Right.
Go ahead, Councillor Butwell.
Just as a follow-up, would there be any desire that Brighton take over that extra time, seeing that you are the primary provider of that? Maybe the Brighton Food Bank might take in that extra and provide expanded hours?
I don't think so. I'm assuming not, but I should say as far as storing and stocking extra things, our shelves are pretty full. As far as getting extra volunteers to put an extra couple of hours in on a Friday afternoon, like with many groups, our volunteers are all older than I am, which is old. So I don't think so.
You said that.
What's that?
You said that.
I did. I'll say it again. No, I don't think we have the capacity for that, but we are certainly appreciative of having this. And if there needed to be an extra hand for a Friday or two, I'm sure we could find something. But I think this is basically based from the fair share from Northumberland.
Okay.
Thank you both, CAO.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. I did reach out following our conversation because we did have the same question. If they had additional supply, had they looked at the food banks to provide that supply? And it was indicated that most of the produce that they have is pretty much end of life, and it's sort of that day or the next day for use, and without the capability of storage. The bread, I believe, is frozen, so it's not really suitable to be restocked.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next item is with regard to the Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund and Grants and Aid Partnership, CAO. We've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just quickly, I did have some correspondence from Bruce Davis. Their board did meet and have some discussion. So really, this report is just looking for council's desire to continue having the conversation, and we would come back with something comprehensive as to the rollout and what council and staff's participation would be within this organization. We've had some very high-level preliminary conversations. So it's just to get a sense. I know we had some chats about grants and aids last year and how they were administered, and in conversation with thought that this might be a good opportunity for the municipality to have an external organization administer those and reduce some of the overlap.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council direct staff to continue to work with the Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund to develop an agreement to administer grant funding on behalf of the municipality of Brighton to be presented at the August 11th, 2025 council meeting for consideration. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, CAO, for thinking of this. I think this is a great opportunity and an idea. One of the guiding principles I've tried to keep in front of me through this term has been to look for the good work that's already happening in the community and partner with and support that, rather than try and do everything from the center, from the municipality. And we've certainly been doing that through some of our committees and through some of the things like the CIPs. And I think this is a great opportunity to continue to do so, giving greater recognition to the Brian Todd Memorial Fund and the role that they have in supporting good work in the community, and then also allowing them to be an extension of our policy of supporting the community.
Thank you for that, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you, to the CAO, would you be expecting that the Brian Todd Memorial Fund would then review all of the grants and aids, or are you just picking and choosing a few? Or do you want them all? I would have then another question as well. As per most of our committees, all of those on these committees are residents of the municipality, and I believe there is at least one person on the Brian Todd Memorial Fund who is not a resident of Brighton. How would we fix that?
And I'll add one more to it. Would we be looking for council representation at the table? CAO.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. So again, very initial discussion. So I've had some discussions with Bruce. We had an informal discussion with two of the board members, not with the board as a whole. They're having discussions on their own as a board and what that looks like. So my thoughts today is that we would provide an allocation to the Brian Todd Memorial Fund. They would then go through the process to evaluate those submissions. I think if there was anything that did not align, we would hold some funds back that, on a one-off, people could come to council and groups could come to council to request funds if it wasn't something that made sense. I think the Brian Todd Memorial Fund also has some stipulations that they may need to modify their thresholds if this is going to work. So we've had that discussion. I'm not entirely familiar with their composition, but we did talk about composition as a whole. My initial comment was that somebody from council should be on that board so that we have that continuity. There was also discussion about having a staff member from the finance department on that board. Whether or not they're voting members, they're advisory, all of those things are still, I think, up for discussion and negotiation. I would certainly be happy to have those discussions and bring back to council the position based on our negotiations and determine how council feels about it. If we have to go back and have further discussions, we can do that. Our timelines, if we were to continue with the same process as we have in the past, we would have to be looking into August to make sure that we get information out to receive those applications. So we would want to get this sorted out, if not in August, then early September. And the Brian Todd Memorial Fund is aware of our timelines for that. The way that it works is we establish that funding in the year prior so that we can put it in our budget and then allocate it in the new year, whereas the Brian Todd Memorial Fund starts in the new year. So even if we made that change today, there wouldn't be any gap in the annual allocations.
Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, and through you to this CIO. What would the term of this contract or this agreement be? How often would we be looking at potentially renewing this, or is that up for negotiation as well?
CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butwell, it's certainly up for negotiation as well. We'd want to monitor the success rate, I think, and make sure that it was, the way that we wanted to move forward. Potentially, it's a trial year, or the agreement is written up so that, it's a 4-year agreement, but we evaluate after 1 year to determine if this is how we want to move forward. And I think more importantly is when we look at the budget is how much we're allocating. We're going to have certainly some challenges with our budget and some large infrastructure projects. So we're going to be mindful about what we're, those other line items and how we can best utilize the balance of those funds. So looking at a long range plan so that we can communicate that to the public and they're aware of, what is available. Again, the thresholds with the Brian Todd Memorial Fund are different than what council has historically been governed by. So those discussions, I think, still need to be had. So council would be comfortable with having that program administered through that organization.
Follow up, if I may. So I have a couple of little questions. I don't want to butt in front of anyone else. If anyone hasn't, go ahead. Okay. All right. So we're currently set around 1.5%. Is that, do I understand that correctly? 1.5% of our budget? Or did we?
I think it's 1%.
1%?
Or is it 1.5% of the previous year's budget? It's an odd.
It's a forward
odd
back.
calculation.
Okay.
It's a forward backwards, yeah. push me, pull you.
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to think of the allocation and what 1% represents, and I feel like we were in and around that value, but I
Mm.
also agree, I feel like the allocation was supposed to be over 1%.
Okay.
Yeah, 1.5% of the previous year's
Allocate.
allocation or
No,
budget?
Yeah, that's where I'm struggling.
But then I
because
thought it was like 130,000 or something, which is not quite 1.5%.
And maybe it was 1.25. I might be able to look as I sit here.
At this point, is it looking at handing over the entire thing, or would it be a portion of it?
It was already explained, it would be a portion of it, and we would hold some back.
We'd hold some back.
Also, we would want to consider things like, right now, hospital funding things are included in that grant and aid budget. Cemeteries are included in that grant and aid budget. Those are the kinds of things that we probably wouldn't want to turn over to a granting organization, because we wouldn't want to give them the responsibility of having a cemetery defunded and then turned over to the municipality. So we want to govern all of that very carefully. So it wouldn't be the full amount.
Wouldn't be the full
That was
amount.
already explained.
And cemeteries is one of my notes here. So, I don't know how the Brian Todd Foundation functions. Do they require audited financial statements? Do they like audited, not just I'm presenting a financial statement?
No, they're required to have audited financial statements, and they do have those.
They do.
And they present them annually at their annual general meeting, when they also give out their grants.
Okay.
That's their AGM.
That was another question, but the people that apply or the groups that apply to the Brian Todd, do they require them to have audited financial statements? Because I know that that was one thing that I've raised 2 years in a row at budget time, that the budgets that are provided to us need to be more than just filled in an Excel sheet.
I think the Brian Todd, I don't know what their specific rules are, but of course they have to govern themselves through the CRA Charities Act, which I believe means they're only permitted to give to charitable organizations and organizations that are registered with the CRA. Do you know the answer to that one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that their ability to grant funding has been expanded beyond that. But historically, yes, I think they have just received the ability to now be able to provide outside of registered charities.
Okay, so because they obviously support the local schools, right? And they wouldn't fall under that charitable thing. But if I can just, as far as audited statements, there again, I know in previous years, we haven't for a long time, but the food bank has certainly applied for some support from them in years previous. And I do not recall having to provide any audited statements.
Okay.
Just a request as to what we were using the funds for.
And just to double up on that, I know most of the churches have received funding for various things from Brian Todd, and none of them have audited financial statements. They get their statements reviewed, but not audited.
Right, so we see that standard account letter that says, I certify that what they've presented is what they've presented versus is accurate. Right, and that actually brings up my next point. The Brian Todd Foundation, I had heard, and perhaps I'm incorrect, that they don't provide grants funding for religious organizations. Is that accurate? Does anyone know? Because I know that we have the Beacon as one of the recipients of our grant and aid, and I would hate to see an organization just flat out excluded.
I
because-
know for a fact that at least one of the churches has received funding,
Okay, and you just mentioned that the churches,
and I'm sure others have too, but I know that there's one church that has received funding.
all right. So this is the road we're going down. Because it seems like we're on a road that we're already going down, and we're just gonna be asked to bless it at the end.
Well, unless we say no tonight, and then the conversation ends, and we'll go back to the drawing board.
Okay, were there any other potential ways of handling our grant and aid program other than just the one? Do we have an option? Like, what are some other ideas that we're come up with?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butwell. Last year during the process, we had brought a report to council suggesting that staff do an evaluation and that we, have criteria and then bring back a recommendation to council. It's one of those things that it takes up a tremendous amount of time, certainly from council's perspective when deliberating the budget. And, the budget deliberations are going to look different this time around. So last year we had presented council with that suggestion that staff would do an evaluation. It also takes the political side out of it. If, staff have criteria and we're making a recommendation, at that point, council wanted to continue with the previous process. So that's something we could always go back to as well. There certainly was discussion though about looking at different ways to handle this. So this is just another idea that has come forth, and we thought we would bring this to council for discussion.
Thank you again. So were there any other ideas that came up? So I see that we're only being offered one choice, and I know that it's nice for us to have choices, and there might be a system that we all would really appreciate more, but we don't have the option to even get to that because we're just going down the one road.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, staff is happy to take any recommendation and review that if council has other ideas on how they want to handle it. I don't have any other ideas off the top of my head, but certainly happy to bring back anything that council wishes for us to evaluate or wishes us to investigate.
So just to clarify, I wasn't asking that we provide ideas. I was under the impression that we asked for ideas, but we've only received one. Were there other ideas that were discussed through staff's discussion with each other?
So last year through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, last year in our discussion, I don't believe that there was a formal expectation for staff to come back with a variety of options. I think we started having the conversation about other ways to do it, and we came forward with that suggestion that staff evaluate it. We could certainly go back and see, but I don't think that there was anything outstanding for staff to then come back. This opportunity just came up and we started to have conversation and thought we would bring it forward. If council is not comfortable with either of those and you want to provide further direction for us to do some further investigation on other opportunities to evaluate the grants, we're happy to do that.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Anything further? Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. To the CEO, I believe you mentioned early on that there'll be more of a complete report on this in August. I'll be waiting to make final judgment then. I want to see more details because I'm a little up and down on this.
Councillor Butwell.
Yeah, I see pros and cons to this as an option, but I think that if we are asking staff to do work on something, if we don't like it, we're then going to be presented with, well, we've already done all this work on it. So I would rather the options be available up front rather than do all the work on one option and then say, well, maybe something else.
So again, staff give council recommendations, and if we don't like that recommendation, our professional staff understand that we are perfectly able, capable, and willing sometimes to say no thank you to that recommendation back to the drawing board staff. So
and it's not that I'm saying no thank you to the recommendation. I just would love to see another option, another way to compare the two of them, the pros and cons.
let's see what the recommendation looks like, in my opinion, and then we can make a decision whether we want to go back to the drawing board and find another option. Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
I've just been reasoning it through, and it seems to me that the goal here, or the concern, and it was one that I had brought up, so I feel comfortable referencing the concern that I brought up during last budget, was that it didn't seem appropriate for council to be having the level of engagement with individual requests that seemed to me to be over the operational line. We had made a decision, a values-based decision that we wanted to support community engagement, and then we exercised a level of scrutiny on charities that we did not and would not and should not exercise on our own departments within the municipality, getting down to specific line items and budgets. And so I recall raising this as something that I would like to see change. So if we're not going to be the ones to do that level of scrutiny, then it either has to go to staff or it has to go to someone else. In this case, there's already someone else in the community who's doing this. And so that seems like a good synergy. The alternative to staff, which again is very costly in terms of staff time to have this level of scrutiny when someone else is willing to do it, as part of their own grant process already. The other alternative might be to outsource it. But with our budget process changing anyway, due to the province changing it for us, this is a good opportunity to make that change anyway. And is, so it's somewhat timely. It seems to be, not just an option, but also, a synergy. So I like it.
Councillor Raleigh.
However, we need to remember that we are now offering this to someone as far as we're handing over tax dollars for someone to scrutinize, correct? This is not just donations through a foundation. We're now handing over X number of tax dollars to a group outside of staff and council to decide where these dollars go.
And that's precisely why I will be looking for this report to include representation by staff and council at that board level, or some level of representation from staff and council. Go ahead, Councillor Belwell.
Through you to my colleague, Councillor Wheeldon, I know that we've discussed being in a position where we feel that we are being critical of one over another, and it's an uncomfortable spot to be, that we are crossing the operational line. I don't like the idea that we then essentially contract out operations, because you're saying we're stepping into operational territory. That to me sounds like this is work that we should be doing, as uncomfortable as it is sometimes, perhaps. I don't like the idea of taking our taxpayer dollars and handing them over to somebody else and hoping for the best.
Funny, I like the idea, and I don't think it's hoping for the best. I think it's providing the opportunity for a group that's already doing the good work that they do, to continue that good work with a pool of money provided that we're already providing to groups, and letting them provide their, I lightly use the word expertise because they're all volunteers, but certainly their knowledge of how funding is allocated through the community. I think it also provides an opportunity to stop the double dipping. And we've seen a lot of that.
I did notice that in
Yeah,
the report, and I
and-
do like that aspect.
And so I really like the aspect that perhaps there would be a more equitable distribution of funds through charities in the community, by pooling these resources into one foundation. I also like the depoliticizing of it. I really like the depoliticizing of it. And I know that we try not to politicize the grants and aid process. I know we work very hard not to as a council, and previous councils have worked very hard not to. But the moment you bring something forward to a group of politicians, it's politicized. It's just the nature of that beast. So I do like the idea that it is at arm's length. I also understand that because these are public funds, we would need to have representation at the table, and I'm supportive of that as well. Go ahead.
Has there been any thought, and perhaps this is it's not the appropriate way to handle it, has there been any thought of having it be like an advisory committee of council made up of community members and inviting the foundation to participate in that and then bring recommendations to council?
I don't think that's a consideration at the moment.
But that would fit within our existing committee structure.
I think maybe that's an option if we don't go down this road. If the report we receive in August is not to our liking, I think that might be an option to consider. Councillor Wheeldon.
I get that I get the logic there. But I think that what would ultimately end up happening there is that if people see the fund as an arm of the municipality, then they will stop contributing to it. Because the things that we do here are funded by taxes. And that is a fundraising organization that I would worry that as soon as it became an arm of the municipality, people would say, oh, that's a government thing. That's not a charity that we should be giving to, because we're already paying for that through our taxes. So I worry about that. And I also want to note that completely agree with the mayor's comment about depoliticizing by outsourcing this to the community fund. But I also think that it's politicized even if it were staff making the decisions. It would still be seen as, well, that was a government decision. And we human beings seem to treat government as different from other people and organizations. We have different expectations and responses to them. And I wouldn't want us to put staff in a position where their role is politicized as well.
CAO.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly won't have an opportunity to speak with the group until after this week. So if there are things, we talked when we had the initial conversation about the presentations and at what level council requires a presentation. They historically have not required a presentation. So we talked about whether or not that was something that they would implement. So if there are ideas that you have, send me an email. I have no problem taking a look and potentially bringing that into the conversation, so that if there are concerns or anything that we can address in advance, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Butwell.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to whoever might know the answer to this. And I just quickly went to the page because in the back of my mind, I feel like there was a life cycle to the Brian Todd Community Fund. Was that, there was like an end date or a projected end date, either when certain funds ran out or?
So they have a certain amount, they have a pool of money that was created through the sale of 170 Main Street to
Right.
the municipality. And if they simply ran that money out, there was an end date, but then that's when they created their charitable status so that they could receive funds. So they do ask for donations so that they hopefully will never run out of money. That's the intent.
Okay,
The intent is that they've created a community chest that they can then continue to contribute to the community
okay.
in perpetuity, hopefully.
In perpetuity. And this would essentially guarantee there to be an in perpetuity.
It would help anchor it, I think.
Okay.
But again, I don't, it's a decision of council, and if this council chooses to engage in this, it doesn't mean that another council doesn't end the engagement.
You know,
Yeah.
sorry, there was something I was thinking there was an end date, there was a expiration date. So this would actually help them to continue offering this type of service in the community.
I think it certainly helps anchor them as a
More long-term.
a community chest in perpetuity.
Okay, thank you.
And if that offends anybody at the Brian Todd Community Fund that I've referred to them as a community chest, I apologize for that. It's not my intent to. I don't know that it will. I don't know that it won't. Maybe they don't think of themselves that way. So anything further on the motion? Madam Clerk, I will note that Councillor Rowley departed from the chamber at 7:59. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion's carried. Of the previous budget. So it's confirmed that grants and aid is 1.5% of the previous budget, previous total budget. That's the allocation. Right. The next report is the CAO ongoing report and capital projects update. CAO, anything to add or highlight?
No, sir, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that Council receive the CAO ongoing report and capital projects update. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Something that is loose for good reason on that report. I still am curious about. I had thought we would have seen some action on the sustainability plan at this point. There had been some things discussed that were. I thought we were going to have some public engagement going on through the summer, things like that had been mentioned in our last meeting with them. And I haven't seen anything come to us about that.
Dr. Walsh.
Through Mayor to Council, yes, I was looking for the same thing. So I reached out to the consultant who's been hired to CA Partners, and we had a team conversation just late last week. And so they've given me a revised schedule, so you'll expect to see something here shortly.
Director, will that come to council or will that go to the sustainability group?
I believe the next step is to give us the background of the community assessment, and that will be simply a report. And so I think it should be coming to council.
Thank you.
Yeah.
CAO, it's good. Anything further on the CAO ongoing report capital projects update? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. We have no notices of motions or motions. We have nothing listed under unfinished business. There are no bylaws to consider this evening, which brings us to reports, minutes of advisory committees of council and review teams. The first is a recommendation from the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee with a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council will support the recommendation from the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee regarding the letter from Nature Canada and further that council directs staff to engage with Nature Canada from Ontario Nature, and that council directs staff to engage with Ontario Nature as a resource for sustainability planning. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And the second is a recommendation from Sustainability with a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council support the recommendation from the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee regarding the letter from O0, and that council directs staff to engage training and awareness opportunities regarding aquatic invasive species and research the suitability for offering training opportunities to the public. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next is a recommendation from the Heritage Advisory Committee with a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, and I will need a seconder, that council receive or support the recommendation from the Brighton Heritage Advisory Committee regarding a notice of designation for the privately owned property, at 15 Chapel Street, and that council authorizes proceeding with the designation of the privately owned property at 15 Chapel Street, Plan 28, Lot 2, and Part Lot 3, RP 39R 8012, Part 1, SS Chapel Street, under Section 29, Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, RSO 1990, CO 18, as a property of cultural heritage value or interest, such that the building and property receive protection under the law. First, Councillor McCausland, do you wish to receive or support? Thank you. Councillor McCausland is saying support. Is there a seconder? No seconder? You're going to second that, Councillor Wheeldon? It's seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. Councillor McCausland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I was just going to speak to it just a little bit because I'm on that committee. They just wanted me to bring some points to you guys, that it might not be the biggest house to possibly delegate, but or designate, sorry, but it holds a lot of significant historical and aesthetic values. Again, it's one of the smaller but more modest homes. It's really just a couple bricks when it comes down to this house, but those bricks carry some good stories in them.
Thank you for that. And I know it's a very similar style to the former parsonage at Trinity St. Andrews, or what was Trinity Methodist parsonage back in the day. And of course that the manse was removed by Trinity St. Andrews last year. So this is the only home of that nature and architectural nature in the community. I'm aware of that too. My question is, have we as a community or an advisory committee reached out to the homeowner?
We don't until after this meeting, technically, from what we choose here, what we vote on.
And that's the norm. I'm looking at Director Walsh. Is that the norm across Ontario for this practice?
It is, Mayor. We have council support for a designation bylaw, then we proceed to notify the owner and discuss cooperation with the landowner. And our policy is that the landowner agree to have a designation before bringing forward a bylaw. So we'll have that discussion.
So this motion is providing staff with direction to proceed with those discussions before bringing a bylaw to council for the protection of the property.
That's correct. And a recognition of some of the attributes that the committee has identified for that property.
I appreciate that. I just want to make sure we understand the process, because I would hate to be sitting at home tonight and listening to my property being named at council for possible, the government doing something with it at the end of the day. Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate those comments from Mr. Walsh, but that's not the way that the motion is worded. It's that the council authorized proceeding with the designation of the privately owned property, not discussing with the property owner. So-
Director?
Further, you'll see that it reads that a notice of intent to designate. So the intention is to designate. So we have a direction of council in principle to move towards designation, but ultimately our policy is also not to designate except with the support of the landowner. So we've got the direction in principle with the intention to designate, but we still have that major bar to jump over.
Go ahead.
Bear with me a moment. Perhaps if someone else has a question, I need to just scan something.
No, so the motion reads regarding a notice of designation. It doesn't say intent, just FYI. It says a notice of designation. And then the last line is after the if supported, such that the building and property receive protection under the law. So it sounds like a done deal. I understand what our policy says.
Yeah, I would just refer council to the second paragraph in the motion.
I'll read it for everyone. That council authorize proceeding with the designation of the privately owned property at, and then it describes the property as a property of cultural heritage value, etc., such that the building and property receive protection under the law, under that law. It sounds like a done deal.
Or just the second paragraph there then reads that if supported by council, the Brighton Heritage Advisory Committee authorizes the committee chair in conjunction with the staff to prepare a formal notice of intention.
I'm sorry, I don't have that information on this motion.
Am I reading the wrong section?
In the recommendation?
Recommendations.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
It's in the recommendation, but not in our motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not in our motion this evening. I'm going to ask the deputy clerk to speak and then Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yeah, maybe I can provide some clarity and maybe that's something I can better advise the committee on with wording. Essentially, if I can recommend maybe that we change council's second portion of that. The notice of designation is required. And we can't put out the notice without council's approval. So that second paragraph, maybe if we just change that to proceeding with the notice of designation. And to be very clear, I understand how that second paragraph does sound that it's a done deal. It's not a done deal until the notice period has happened. There is an appeal period after that. Notice has been posted, and the done deal is if council passes a bylaw designating the property following the notice period and the appeal period.
Thank you. Councillor Botwell.
Through you to the deputy clerk. So you said that there's an appeal period. If we are asking for the homeowner's agreement and consent, then why would we need an appeal?
Because some communities don't have the policy we have. So under the Heritage Act, we can just designate. We don't need to go and ask permission because we live where we live in the community that we live in, and we feel that we should be community minded. We have a policy that says we shall be community minded, and we will go make sure the homeowner is comfortable with this. But in other places,
Right.
in Northumberland County, they have the authority to designate under their policy and do.
So just to clarify, because I do remember we had this discussion when I sat over there. If they balk at it, we are not there to convince them. And staff will not make efforts to convince them or coerce them. That's accurate?
Well, I think staff would probably provide them with the reasoning behind the wish to designate the property and tell them
Okay.
why we think it's a heritage property. I'm sure, only because I've known him for most of my life, that the chair of the committee would try to sell the idea of designating the property. But at the end of the day, Our policy says that if the homeowner does not want to go down this road, we won't go down this road. And we would receive a report back, I assume, with that information.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Deputy Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what I can say is that a letter will be specific, the notice is required, and that's not just for the owner, that's for affected persons, for the public. It's a very typical notice that we would put out for, like we do for planning items. When it comes to contacting the owner, my intention is to write a letter. This is what's happened. Council has passed this motion, and also providing the notice along with the report prepared by the committee, which is included in your package, which details the reasoning for their recommendation to designate and why the notice is happening. But the letter would be more personal with what you're suggesting of like more communication. But the notice is required, and it's very kind of basic, which is why I wouldn't just send the notice. I would send a letter with it, along with details and information about what it means to designate your property.
Follow up to that,
Go ahead.
perhaps. Is it going to be plain language, explicitly clear right off the bat that if you in any way disagree with this, none of it will happen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I like to pride myself on keeping things as plain language as possible personally. So that's my intent. I have not drafted the letter, but yes.
I'm just,
And with the same message with more along the lines of contacting us. Let's chat about it. If you have questions or anything like that.
okay.
Councilor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. I still have concerns because if we move this, these poor homeowners could have the public knocking on their door saying, you need to do this. Once we post that, correct? All of a sudden, the whole neighborhood could come up and say, yeah, you need to look after this the way it is. Like, I just see a lot of pressure here on the homeowner,
Well, they could-
regardless of whether it comes from the committee or the neighborhood.
They could do that now.
They could do that now, but we're gonna put the open house sign on their front lawn saying, here you go.
I'm pretty sure we've done that by publishing this agenda. Or by publishing the minutes of the Heritage Advisory Committee. At the end of the day, these are all public processes. So whether we pass the motion or not, we've already put the address out there. People are already aware that we're considering this process. And they were aware that the Heritage Advisory was considering this process back in when June, back in July, July 14th? July 14th. Councilor Botwell.
Thank you through you to Councilor McCausland. You said that there are many good stories in those bricks. What is significant about this home?
Councilor McCausland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other than
Through you.
just being.
Well,
old.
that's just it. There's a few bricks left in that house, that have good stories. There's, that they give it a score. They score the house. There's 2 on the committee that go and they give the house a score. They don't go in it. They just look from afar and kind of evaluate it. And they said from the research that another gentleman had done on the committee and from what they can tell, it is just the look of the home, and from what the gentleman has, the history he did, the research he found in it, that would be in the report, all the stories. I don't have them off the top of my head, but that's what I was told, so.
But it is in the report.
Yeah, I skimmed it. I don't agree with this in principle, so. I only skimmed.
Councilor Wheeldon.
I very much appreciate the policy that we have where we don't force this on people. I know it can be very contentious. And because we have this policy where we don't force it on people, I think that if there is community pushback or pressure on the residents to take care of this or designate it or whatever, I would hope that they can point to the municipal policy of not forcing this on people and know that we've got their back as a resident of this community who's chosen to exercise their rights under our policies. And I just want to say that publicly. If they say no, we'll have their back on that. If they say yes, we'll have their back on that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I would also note that the Heritage Advisory Committee isn't just going around finding old buildings and saying that's the one because it's old, we're going to do it. They're looking for things of cultural value. Who has once lived there? And so if you read the report, you'll see that a number of downtown business owners were owners of that property, and so people of significant cultural value for the community, even though we might not know who they are today. I think it helps by keeping these buildings alive to be able to say, you know, this building was once owned by, and I'm just using words now, the hardware store owner, and maybe that's true, maybe it's not, I don't know, but no, furniture store owner. But you get my point. They're not just looking at for the oldest building in the community that may or may not even be worth saving. They're looking for buildings that are worth some construction value of, you know, they're worth saving from a physical point of view, but also have cultural value to the community. I think that's an important point to make. Councillor McCausland.
Thank you. I was just kind of backboning off of that. There's also a list that we were given to follow, to kind of go and look at the houses on this list that are historical in our town. I think it was set out for all municipalities to do the same.
Was indeed. Anything further on this motion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. And the next is with regard to a recommendation from Heritage Advisory, moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council receive or support the recommendation from the Brighton Heritage Advisory Committee regarding a notice of designation for the privately owned property at 20 Center Street, 58 Chapel Street, and that council authorizes proceeding with the designation of the privately owned property at 20 Center Street, 58 Chapel Street, Brighton Plan 65, lots 5 and 6, RP 39R9859, Part 2, under Section 29, Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, RSO 1990, CO 18, as a property of cultural heritage value or interest, such that the building and property receive protection under that law. Councillor McCausland, as the mover, do you wish to receive or support? And support it is. Is there any discussion on this motion? Go ahead, Councillor McCausland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Again, just very couple of little points. There is a very in-depth report attached if you would like to know all the stories and everything that did happen on these two lots. It is in the report, but it is one of the only double lots left in town. It is historically served as a recognizable landmark at the end of Center Street for a very long time. It's a beautifully built home. I live right across the road from it. It's lovely to look at. And it stands as an important reminder of the town's heritage and what used to be a very big purchase or part in your life, as it always is your first home or when you're building a home. It's a very lovely house.
Now, note on this one, it's a property that was owned by a proctor, so at one time. So there is some very significant cultural value for the community in this. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? That motion is carried. And the next, where are we at here? Next report is the Brighton Wastewater Pollution Control Plant Expansion EA Pre-Consultation Minutes, June 12th, 2025. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receive the Brighton WPCP Expansion EA Pre-Consultation Minutes, June 12th, 2025 as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And the next is the minutes of environmental sustainability, community events, Applefest, and economic development, with a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council receive the minutes from the following committee meetings as presented: Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee, April 29th, 2025, Community Events and Awards Steering Committee, June 17th, 2025, Applefest Steering Committee, June 18th, 2025, Economic Development Advisory Committee in draft, July 10th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. That brings us to reports and minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies. The first is the Brighton Public Library minutes, moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council receive the Brighton Public Library Board May 29th, 2025 meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Councillor McCausland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I just have one thing kind of exciting to talk about with the library. I know it was taken away from us a few years ago, but we now have the home delivery service back. So you can go online or you can stop in at the library, I think, and pick up a form to apply for that. It is free, but it's all in the works, and it's exciting for people who want to read but can't get to the library.
Brilliant. I love that for a community like ours. Anything further? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next is Lower Trent Conservation Authority meeting minutes. It's moved by Councillor McCausland, and I'll need a seconder that Council receive the Lower Trent Conservation Authority April 10th, 2025 meeting minutes as presented. Councillor Wheeldon as the seconder. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
I just want to note that one of the things was the Source Protection Authority meeting minutes. And there's reference in that meeting to some challenges that Source Protection Authority has had with the province in terms of how much responsibility the province has for actually correcting threats to the water sources in our community. And so they've since worked that out. And so you'll see in future minutes that that through a lot of hard work from our board, our source protection group, they've done good work with the province and sorted it out.
Thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Bringing us to correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, and petitions. The first is a resolution from the City of Pickering with a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland. The council support the resolution from the Council of the City of Pickering regarding opposition to Bill 5 and request to repeal. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And the next is a request for municipal nomination to the Northumberland Physician Recruitment Advisory Committee with a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council nominate Ann Butwell to the Northumberland Physician Recruitment Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Next is Northumberland County endorsement to support the Township of Mulmer's resolution with a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council support Northumberland County endorsement of the Township of Mulmer resolution, procurement and advocacy for trade agreement exemptions. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next is a resolution from the town of Coburg with a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, and I'll need a seconder. The council receive or support the town of Coburg resolution regarding Ontario's Bill 5 and its impact on the local food system and the environment. Councillor McCausland, would you like to receive or support? Thank you. Support it is. Councillor Wheeldon is the seconder. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Next is the Rotary Street Dance, August 2nd, with a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council support the correspondence from the Rotary Club regarding the Rotary Street Dance, August 2nd, and municipal tables and chairs to be donated free of charge for this event. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm very supportive of this. We have, service clubs who do a lot of work. You having trouble over there? Yeah, that's better. Service clubs who do a lot of work, and both of these clubs give much back to our communities that I just would not be in favor of having to charge them for this. I know it's something new in our fees and charges bylaw, but I think for the amount of money that the $500 will go a lot farther in the community than it will just in municipal coffers.
Thank you for that. Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually don't disagree with Councillor Rowley. However, when Pop-Up Pride asked for relief from this, they were told no, that this is a policy of council. And they ended up getting tables elsewhere. When it came to the Bridge Hospice yard sale, that would have been it was a very tough year at that yard sale. It would have been approximately 5% the cost to rent tables. And so we didn't rent tables because of that all comes out of the money that's donated up to the hospice. So while I would love to see service groups or registered charities not be covered in this policy, it was not even an option that was presented to come to council and ask for relief from this. So I just don't think that, if we do it for one, we need to do it for everybody. I couldn't afford the $85 for the hospice sale. I didn't know I could even come here and ask for relief from that. So I don't actually support, I support giving these assets that we have to municipally involved groups that do good things in the community, but I'm not going to support this because other groups are paying for it.
We have staff out that night, do we not? CAO for the street dance? I think I see staff out that night.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, that is correct. There are staff that are brought in on overtime to maintain garbages and deliver tables or pick up tables in the past.
How many staff and how many hours, give or take?
Through you, not sure. I haven't attended one of these events as of yet, but I believe it's probably at least 2 staff or more from parks and maybe also 2 staff from operations. And they're usually there for the length of the event, my understanding.
And there's some sort of fencing system that goes up. Is that the municipality that puts that up?
I'm not aware of the fencing, just the tables and chairs and then some garbage collection. And
maybe something they require under their liquor license to put it up. So that might be on the Rotary Club to do. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to speak to Councillor Butwell's comments. I'm sure if Pop-Up Pride or the Hospice Yard Sale group had maybe brought something to council, I would have supported it as well. We have done that with other hockey leagues over the years, waived fees for arena use or ice time or something like this. And I will always support looking after our service clubs here in Brighton, all of our volunteers. It's what these communities are built on.
Maybe we need to look at the policy then. Councillor Butwell.
It was staff that said that the decision was final, and we also had to pick up for Pop-Up Pride. We also would have had to pick up and deliver the items back ourselves.
Councillor Wheeldon.
I would be in favor of looking at the policy. I would love to see an exemption or just a method of support for charities, community-oriented groups, not for private events, but certainly not for private events. And I think it's important that we have a clear policy that applies equally to everyone. But in this case, with any new policy, there's always a little bit of getting used to things. And so I'd like to take a look at that, but that's not the motion in front of us tonight.
True enough, but it is something we can do at budget time if we choose to do that. Also, as a reminder, we shut down the street for this, and I don't think we charge rent for the street in any way, shape, or form, but nor should we. I'm not, I'm just suggesting there's lots going on in this event that is on municipal property, using municipal staff time and resources and municipal resources. And I understand that those tables were purchased by the taxpayer at the end of the day. So should the taxpayer be able to use them? Probably, but these are resources that we then need to, if in time we will need to replace. That costs money, and it's not free to have staff on a long weekend do an awful lot of work for folks. So I'm a bit torn. I agree the money is better spent in the community than providing it back to the municipality. On the other hand, these are resources that I guess I would question, should all the taxpayers have to fund? Because it's noted here 300 to 400 residents turn up, but there are 13,000 residents in the municipality of Brighton. Anything further on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
As far as the motion goes, should we add something to the motion as per Councillor Wilden that we review this policy at budget time? Or is that for something down the road?
We will review, it's a fees and charges bylaw, so we review it every year. So
We'll just leave it.
just leave it. It'll come to council and council can take a look at what we're doing in terms of fees and charges. You're welcome. Anything further? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion is carried. Let's not have discussions at council without putting our microphones on. Next item is with regard to Rail Safety Week. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. That council support Rail Safety Week from September 15th to 21st, 2025. Whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada from September 15th to 21st, 2025. Whereas 261 railway crossings and trespassing incidents occurred in Canada in 2024, resulting in 68 avoidable fatalities and 58 avoidable serious injuries. Whereas educating and informing the public about rail safety, reminding the public that railways rights of way are private property, enhancing public awareness of the dangers associated with highway rail grade crossings, ensuring pedestrians and motorists are looking and listening while near railways and obeying established traffic laws, will reduce the number of avoidable fatalities and injuries caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, Indigenous communities, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. And whereas CN and Operation Lifesaver have requested Brighton Council to adopt this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality. There must be a therefore statement that's not printed here. Yes. It is hereby resolved to support National Rail Safety Week to be held from September 15th to 21st, 2025. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Mayor, does this request come to the county as well?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, if it does come to the county, I just want to thank, a week or so ago, we had another terrible incident on one of the rails, I believe Hunt Road, where there are no signals. I would hope, it's all within the county. It's not certainly within Brighton, but it is within our neighboring community and it is within the county. If at some point, whether it comes through this council or through the county, that we would certainly maybe push for the rail companies to do something at that crossing. There have been far too many lives lost there for whatever reason.
I understand that sentiment and I concur 100% that more effort needs to be made in order to affect safety. The Hunt Road is not a county road. It's a municipal road in the township of Crammy, so it would be up to Crammy Township to negotiate their protection systems with the railways, just like Brighton does with our railways, and Brighton pays for those. Don't forget. I sign those checks. They're not, it's not cheap to have level crossings in a municipality. Yeah.
But the fact that it's within the county as well, I know it's not a county road, it is within the county. And you are the upper level of government here. I'm wondering if you can then force the hand of our neighboring community to do something about that. You sit next to Mayor Mandy, maybe just put a bug in her ear. Something needs to be done there.
We can certainly have a conversation. The county of Northumberland cannot force a lower tier municipality to do anything with the roadways. I wouldn't want the county to do that with Brighton, and I would not venture down that road with Grammy Township, but I would be happy to whisper in Mayor Martin's ear about safety concerns at Hunt Road. You're welcome. Anything further from members of council? We've also had rail issues in our community, at least one fatality over the last year that I can think of, two, getting two over from the fire chief. Chief, would you like to speak to those and where they were? With not details, but just.
So we had, through your worship, we had one on Ontario Street, and we also had one on Huff Road. And there was another one today at the Pentecostal Church Road in Hamilton Township. That one was, the person survived that one, but it was a close call.
Wow. And the two in Brighton are at crossings that have are signalized crossings.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Is the one in Hamilton Township that you just mentioned a signalized crossing?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, Hunt Road I know is not. It's yeah. Any further on the motion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Moving to FYI correspondence, we have just the one? No, two. 3 from Northumberland County, so we'll have to add those. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council received the Northumberland County updates June 23rd to August 1st, 2025. Oh, it does. Oh, thank you. Councillor Wilden.
Thank you, Mayor. Are you able to maybe provide some clarity on one of the matters here regarding Transition House and the change in services? My understanding from the county meeting was that county staff would be proposing changes to the service model by the end of the summer, some point next month. And yet I'm hearing from people that some people are already being moved out of Transition House because they do not fit the new model. Now, I would happily put that in the category of hearsay, but I'd love to hear from you whether there has been an update that I missed or not.
If you've missed it, I've missed it. I don't have any updates with regard to Transition House other than the one you're reading in front of you, which was the change in essentially the closure of the warming hub in order to address some community concerns in the town of Coburg. I do know that the county has put out an appeal seeking a warming hub opportunity in other communities. So we hope that we will find a space for a warming hub, and how effective that might be in another community, we wait to see. Anything further on the motion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And from Halliburton, Kawartha, Northumberland, Peterborough Board of Health, it's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that Council received the Halliburton, Kawartha, Northumberland, Peterborough Board of Health meeting summary Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And the Halliburton, Kawartha, Pine Ridge District Health Unit and Peterborough Public Unit Health Unit seeking candidates to fill public appointments. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council received the correspondence from the Halliburton, Kawartha, Pine Ridge District Health Unit and the Peterborough Public Health Unit regarding candidates to fill public appointment positions on the Board of Health. Is there any discussion? All in favor? And being none opposed, that motion's carried. And from the Northumberland OPP Detachment Board, it's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council received the Northumberland OPP Detachment Board Chair's annual report. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to question period. There's no one in the gallery. Are we aware? And there's no one online. All right, that brings us to our confirmatory bylaw. It's moved by Councillor McCausland, and I will need a seconder. A council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on July 25th, 2025. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rowley. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Is there any opposed? The motion's carried. And finally, a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the July 21st, 2025 council meeting adjourn at 6:41 p.m. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And I wish you all a good day and a happy travels home, and God save the King.